Shari?
Yes,
We
we're
are
ready?
on. Yes, we are.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Due to COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variances and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you do call in, staff will ask you for your name and item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Then further instructions will be provided for you to call back and join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls the interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must state their name and address for the record, and 5 minutes will be provided for each person to make their presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes, again, will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made and from interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity for you to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for giving any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent to the applicant and agent and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the last day to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none. Thank you. At this moment, I will be taking requests for a deferral or withdrawal of any applications. Secretary-Treasurer, can you put through the attendees that would like a deferral, please?
Through Madam Chair, I'm just promoting to the panelist, Mr. Lan.
Good evening, committee. I would like to request a deferral for file CAVA 080/2020 for 2552 Rivers Bend Lane. Due to the fact we have not received regional comments at this time.
Okay. We have letters of support, Ms. Secretary Treasurer. Are there any attendees that have come and registered to speak to this matter today?
Madam Chair, we do have from the region of Halton, Mr. Quadri. He's a panelist right now, and he might want to speak. I'm not sure. You need to verify.
Good evening, committee. My name is Quadri Adebayo. I'm a planner with the Halton region. I'm just here to answer any questions that committee might have with regards to the regional comment regarding this application.
Very well. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Adebayo? I see none. Okay. If there are no members of the public that would wish to address the committee with respect to this deferral, we can take the matter into committee. We're always happy to look at a deferral if it promotes a better outcome for the application and for the different departments to work together accordingly. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Radomesky at this time? Okay, I see none. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred, sir. You will contact the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience, and a date will be provided to you at that time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Mr. Abadaya, thank you for coming, and we'll see you again if need be.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Ms. Secretary Treasurer, I will wait for you to promote the next panelists. Please let me know when you're ready to proceed with the next application, which is CAV 006 of 2021 at 1470 Albion Avenue.
Madam Chair, there is
Yes?
Arlene is in attendance to speak for the next application.
Okay, very well. Do we have members of the public that wish to address the committee as well? I know we have many letters of support that have been cited here.
To Madam Chair, you need to ask if anybody in attendees wants to speak in regards to this application.
Okay, very well. The application that is on our roster this evening to start our meeting is CAV 006 of 2021 at 1470 Albion Avenue. At this time, if you are watching the live stream and you would like to speak to this application, you can call 905-815-6095, and staff is standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. I'll now let the applicant or agent, Arlene Beaumont, do her presentation, and anyone that is listening or is in attendance that would like to speak to this application, please raise your hand through the electronic platform, and the Secretary Treasurer will put you in the queue. Ms. Beaumont, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Arlene Beaumont, Outfit and Associates. I apologize. I keep getting a message that's saying my internet is unstable. So I apologize if for whatever reason you can't hear me or see me. So we're here this evening to request two variances. One is for residential floor area. The second is for lot coverage. I am not going to say too much about lot coverage. We have supportive planning comments. I don't think there's much to be said there. I would like to make some comments about the residential floor area variance. First of all, the owners are a multi-generational family that do require a larger home. The subject property is in a neighborhood of large lots and large homes. Most of the homes appear to be built about 40 years ago in the 1960s or late 60s, early 70s. Projecting three-car garages are very common in this neighborhood. One of the things that the planning report does mention are areas open to below. In this home, the front foyer and the rear, the family room at the rear of the home are both two-story heights. Planning is concerned that someone down the road may wish to construct floor area on the second floor above these areas. I just want to make the comment that anyone who wishes to do that, whether it be the present owner or someone down the road, would need both a building permit and another approval from this committee in order to do so. In addition, the massing of the home would not be affected if this floor area was filled in, because the building envelope is set right now. We're not doing they wouldn't be doing anything to the outside of the home. It just clearly be an interior change. Again, building permits would be required and another application the committee would be required. If you'd like to go to slide number 4, please. So this is the existing dwelling, and as I mentioned, the three-car garage is a very prominent feature on this home. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed new dwelling, very different from the existing. A side-loaded garage, so that garage does not dominate the front of the home and the streetscape. If you go to the next slide. Next slide. So this is the site, and there's a small revision on this drawing compared to the one you have in your package. My client did have meetings with neighbors over the weekend, and the neighbor at 1474 did express some concern about the municipal tree on the boulevard. So my client has agreed to jog the driveway further away to from that municipal tree to ensure the long-term health of that tree. So it's a small change. It does not impact the variances that we're requesting today. If you go to the next slide, please. This is the side elevation with the garage. Again, a small change has been made to satisfy the neighbor at 1474. One of the windows on the second floor has been removed. So a slight change from the package that you have in front of you. But again, my client is very much interested in working with the neighbors to make and doing whatever he can to make sure they're satisfied with the proposal. Next slide, please. This is a map of the neighborhood. The red dot is on the existing dwelling. And as you can see, the footprint of that dwelling is slightly smaller than a lot of the homes on the street. So that's the existing footprint of the dwelling. The black dots are new builds, or what appear to be new builds in the neighborhood. And some of them are considerably larger than my client's proposed dwelling. Certainly very, very much bigger than the dwelling that's there right now. So this is a neighborhood that's experiencing some renewal. We have some older homes being replaced by new homes. We also have some people doing additions and just renewing these properties that are getting, a little bit older now, about 40 years old. Next slide, please. So the existing home, as I said, is slightly smaller than homes of a similar age on the street and quite a bit smaller than some of the new builds. The proposed new home at 1470 Albion is in keeping with other new builds in this neighborhood. The property owner has obtained signatures from 15 neighbors saying that they have no issues with the variances that have been requested. And if you'd just like to go a couple of slides, please. So this is a new build at 1489. The next slide, please. Again, a large home. Next slide. Another new build on Albion. Next slide, please. So I've just put stars on all the property owners that have provided letters saying that they have no issues with the variances that are being proposed. One thing I should have mentioned when we were looking at the site plan, the neighbors in behind, directly behind, have some concerns with the massing of the home from the rear. And I wanted to make the point, and I should have made it when we had the site plan drawing up, that there is considerable tree cover along the rear property line. And so even this time of year, these are large mature trees, they are going to provide some buffering and some screening from the rear lot line of my client's home to the home in behind. So, you know, this is a neighborhood of mature trees, large lots. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we're only asking for 2 variances, coverage and residential floor area. We're not asking for yards, side yards, rear yard, backyard, all meet the bylaw. No height variance is required. The additional floor area that we're asking is 3.75%. This is a very large lot. And as I said, because we don't require variances for any of the yards, there's potential to do quite a lot of landscaping here on this lot that will help to buffer the massing of the home. And once landscaping is complete, the additional floor will really not be apparent from the street on a lot of this size. The new dwelling will have a side-loaded garage, and I think it will be an improvement to the streetscape over the existing dwelling, which the garage, that three-car garage, is very prominent. So this will be a much, I think, friendlier look on the streetscape. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Any questions for Ms. Beaumont at this time from committee members? Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed in your presentation you covered a lot of areas, except you really didn't address what I see as staff's most significant concern, and that's the actual mass of the building and the fact that the first floor and the second floor haven't been stepped in any way across the frontage. So if you could address staff's concerns there, please.
I'm sorry, you're really breaking up badly. I didn't hear all of that question.
I don't believe you addressed staff's concerns about the massing of the building. I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak to that.
Sorry, I've lost you. I've lost you again, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Maybe if I try, do you hear me well, Ms. Beaumont?
Yes, I think I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Talowski is asking what you have to say considering the massing, which is primarily what staff was concerned about and you did not really cover in your presentation.
So the design of the building is not one that is conducive to stepping back. It's a somewhat European style home. I guess my position is it's an extremely large lot, and I don't feel that this small variance in floor area is really going to be relevant on a lot of this size, especially because we're respecting the front and rear and side yard setbacks. and the height as well. It's not going to be any higher than what is permitted. It is a 9-meter high house. So on a lot of this size, I'm not sure that it's really going to be apparent, especially once the landscaping plan and once they get landscaping in. It's not something that's going to stick out. I don't think from the street. It's not something. And from the rear, as I said, we have a lot of mature cover along the rear lot line, along part of the side lot line. So that's going to be helpful as well in screening that massing.
Mr. Talowski, has Ms. Beaumont answered your question, or would you like to ask anything further?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
Madam Chair, we do have public that has in attendance, Mr. Martin Curie.
Okay. Okay, very well. Martin and Michelle Curie.
Correct.
Okay. Who else do we have so we can take them in order? I was just asking the committee for their questions before I asked the public that would like to address the committee.
And Mr. Steven. So
Stephen and Maya Terwind, right?
Correct.
I have them both.
Yes, we're
Okay.
here.
Very kind, yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, so we'll start with Mr. and Mrs. Curie.
Evening. Can you hear us okay?
Evening. Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I'm concerned that there's been reference to what I can or cannot see from the rear of the property. I can assure you that the trees do not provide the coverage that Madam Beaumont is indicating, so that there is going to be an impact of mass from looking from the rear. So yeah, I just want to make that point clear that there's speculation being provided on what I can or cannot see from my property.
Okay, and we do have your letter citing all the issues that you were concerned about. Is there anything else that you would like to put before the committee today, other than the fact that the massing is not fully?
Yes, I just want to indicate that we are being proactive and are looking at our neighbour to proceed with a new property and building. We are being proactive in that regards, but we've only been given 2 weeks to look at something that's going to impact us long term. That's given me concern, and that's why I'm raising the points that I'm raising from my point of view. But I welcome the opportunity for the property to be developed, but taking into consideration the massing is my biggest concern.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Curry. We appreciate your submission, and we will take it into account. Are there any questions of Mr. and Mrs. Curry before I take the next panelists, Mr. Stephen and Maya Terwind?
No, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Mr. and Mrs. Terwind, I hope I'm saying that right.
You do, and thank you very much, Chair, for inviting us. So we would like to first of all express that we are giving our support to the overall project and are appreciative of the changes that were presented this evening by Mrs. Beaumont in the name of Mr. Zia Mohammed. The two primary concerns we had, the most important one is, of course, that as a result of moving the garage to the side of the house facing our home, of course, the driveway has a different way than it used to have. So the driveway is moved substantially to the boundary of our property. And the only concern we had is that cars would now be parked pretty close to the boundary of our property. Obviously, if they are parked inside the garage, that's not an issue. But I really hope that the landscaping that's Ms. Beaumont is talking about can really compensate for the cars becoming too visible, too close to the property line as a result of moving that driveway substantially towards the boundary of the property that we have. And I think a good change has been made by moving the driveway more towards the property of Mr. Zia. But the main concern remains, how can we make sure that through the landscaping, it won't be a situation where cars are parked too close to the property line of 1474. That's the only remaining issue we have, but overall we are happy with the adjustments that were made and are appreciative of also the adjustments with the windows facing our property. So in conclusion, we are supportive, but really would like the point of the cars being parked too close to the property line be addressed.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Turman, for your submission. I will give Ms. Beaumont a chance to respond to all your concerns. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, do we have any other panelists that are waiting to be promoted to speak to this application that have raised their hands?
Madam Chair, you need to repeat again because I do have attendees, but they need to raise a hand if they want to speak.
Very well. For all those who are in attendance of this meeting or listening to the live stream at 905-815-6095 is the number to call to speak to the meeting. And if you are already in the meeting and you want to be promoted to speak, please do raise your hand at this time so that you do not miss your opportunity to address this matter before it is taken into committee. Okay, Ms. Beaumont. I'm going to do things a little bit unorthodox. I will give you a few minutes to address the concerns of the two neighbors that we've heard so far, simply because we have introduced a new system to this, the technology that's running the town meeting. So it's going to take some time to promote panelists and move forward. So I'm just going to use my time wisely by doing so.
Thank you. So I would like to say, so far, excuse me, we don't have a landscape plan as yet. Obviously, that comes at the end once the new home has been built. But I think that my clients have demonstrated they're very willing to work with neighbors, and I'm sure that they would be happy to discuss their landscaping plans with neighbors on either side and neighbors to the rear to make sure that there is lots of screening of the home, whether that be in terms of planting some evergreen type trees that provide quite good cover along the side or the rear lot lines. That's something that I'm sure that they would be more than happy to do once the construction program is over and they're ready for that landscaping piece to take shape.
Very well. And the other issue that was raised by Mr. and Mrs. Curry is their concern for the massing in the rear, and it's not having the same coverage of the mature trees that you had spoken about.
Well, there are mature trees along the rear property line. I'm assuming that they're deciduous trees. So of course, this time of year, they're not going to provide a lot of cover. Again, it's something that I'm sure my clients would be willing to work with them, with Mr. and Mrs. Curry on. How do we make this fencing, landscape screening? What can we do to make sure that everybody's got privacy from each other? There's not overlooked conditions. And in my career, I found a lot can be done through landscaping. So we're not at the landscaping stage yet, but my clients met with everyone on Sunday and they instructed their designer to make changes to the plans for yesterday morning to address the concerns of 1474. I think that really demonstrates that they're very willing to work with the neighbors. Okay, very well. Are there any questions of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone from the panelists, Ms. Secretary Treasurer, raised their hand to speak to this matter any further before we take the matter into committee?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. And this matter is going to be taken into committee, and who would like to move a motion? Don't see any hands up. Mr. Talowski, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have to side with staff on this application. I think I've been fairly consistent in my views on these sort of situations. The applicant's response to impact to massing was it's a large lot, it won't be an issue. I see it differently. It's a large lot that creates a very large mass. The bylaw that doesn't allow the extra almost 600 feet that's being asked for here. And when you don't comply with the bylaw, I believe there's an obligation to mitigate the impact of the variance. And I don't see that here. I don't believe essentially two-story walls with a truncated roof once you hit the height limit is an attempt to mitigate the impact of the variance. I think reading between the lines from staff's comments, the front rear elevation should look like the right elevation. With the broken up by roofs, it would lessen the impact, it would lessen the size of the variance. I don't believe that this is appropriate, and I don't believe it's minor due to the impact that I perceive the mass would have. So I would recommend the application be denied. I would note, Madam Chair, that both letters of support for this application, as well as presentations that have concerns from the neighborhood.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. The motion is to deny the application that is before us. All those in support? Okay, and your application has been denied, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Beaumont. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, I'll be waiting for your green light to move to the next application. And while you do that, I will read into record the application number and promote it on the live stream. The application that is before us right now is CAV 007 of 2021 at 18 Chartwell Road. Again, it's application CAV 007 2021 at 18 Chartwell Road. If you would like to speak to this application and you are watching the live stream page at oakville.ca, please give us a call at 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. And the number is also posted on the live stream page. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference at that time.
Through Madam Chair.
Yes.
I need to address the agent for the application CAV 008 2021. She just texted me and she wants to defer the application. She's in a panelist screen, and I asked her like if she wants to speak now or later on, but she wants to speak now.
Okay. Have you already promoted the attendees of Chartwell Road to the panel, so we're ready and set to go?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay, then I will hear the request for the deferral at this time. I did ask in the beginning if there was anyone who would like to defer. I just want to go on record that that is our procedural bylaw. We do take deferrals in the beginning, but I'm happy to oblige given the circumstances and that technology is not always up and running at the time that we'd like it to. So who is requesting the deferral for application CAV 008 of 2021? And before I do see it here, Miss Ida Evangelista, correct? Okay, Ms. Evangelista, bear with me for a moment. I'd like to know if there were any panelists that wanted to speak to this application. If you are in attendance for CAV 008 of 2021 and you wanted to speak to this application, please raise your hand. Do you see anyone, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
I do see Karen Tomala, and I don't know if she wants to speak.
I have
to
a
you.
note here that she wanted just to observe.
Yes.
Okay. Very well. If she does raise her hand, let us know. Go ahead, Ms. Evangelista.
Through you, Madam Chair, firstly, I would like to apologize to you and to the members. My misunderstanding, I was in receipt of the staff comments late Friday, and I was on the understanding that it was an automatic deferral, and again, I apologize. And I was trying to figure out how to get someone's attention, and I didn't realize there was that little hand at the bottom because I'm not seeing it unless I put it there. So, you know, please, with respect, I apologize for the misunderstanding. You know, as you know, I always like to work with staff, and I am under, and I've been advised that staff is not supportive of this particular application. We do have 3 variances, 2 of which we will be removing. And but one, which is the most concerning, is the RFA, which you know, in speaking with Brandon, it is quite high. So we will be adjusting that. So with respect, I would like to ask for a deferral to allow us the opportunity to make revisions to the plans and come back before you and have it be heard.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Evangelista. We're always happy to see you work with staff and the neighbors. You also have a letter of opposition and another neighbor who wanted to observe. So I'll leave that with you to reach out to them while you are reassessing your application. And you'll have to see the Secretary Treasurer for the next available date. I do not have one for you. But let's first take care of the deferral. Members, I'm in your hands. All those in favor of a deferral? Very well. Your application has been deferred, none opposed. Thank you, Ms. Evangelista.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You as well. Good night. Okay, I apologize. Now we're back to application CAV 007 of 2021 of 18 Chartwell Road. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, I'm assuming that the panelists who would like to speak have raised their hands.
Yes, William Hicks is here. So.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks. We'll start with your presentation, and then we'll see who would like to address the committee from the members of the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. We have a fairly simple application. It's an existing Georgian house on Chartwell. We're seeking permission to build a new front porch over the front entrance, which is in keeping with the character of the house. And then we are building a master bedroom on top of the garage. There's an existing roof that's slightly lower on the garage itself. So we are building a new master bedroom on top of that. We're seeking a front yard setback simply for the columned front entrance. And the only reason we're over our GFA is that there are 2 blank areas within the roof that, because of the way the bylaw is written for spaces over top of the garages, that we have to include that in our gross floor area. Otherwise, we meet the gross floor area in terms of the usable space. So I know planning is in support, and we have 5 letters of support from our neighbors. So in the interest of being brief for the committee's sake, I'll certainly be prepared to answer any questions. And there are additional drawings if I need to respond to something specific, but fairly straightforward application in my mind. So.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Are there any questions of Mr. Hicks at this time from our committee members? Okay, I see. Oh, Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, not really a question, and I should have done this earlier in the meeting. As this is a public meeting and normally we would be in chamber and one would have to present publicly, could we kindly request that presenters turn on their cameras? Thank you.
My apologies. So.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Hicks now that we see his face? I sometimes forget, and I appreciate Ms. Murray reminding me to do that. We really should have our cameras on so that we know we are speaking to the person that is charged with this application, be it the applicant or the agent on record. It's a very awkward time that we have, and I think we're all struggling with that. We toggle between, privacy and comfort.
Yeah, my apologies. I've been on 7 hours of Zoom calls today, so
I can only imagine.
I didn't realize it was off.
Okay, Ms. Secretary Treasurer, has anyone raised their hand to speak to this application?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Then we are prepared to take the matter into committee if no one has any questions for Mr. Hicks and he's aware of the conditions that town staff have recommended, and we can proceed. Okay, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report and the drawings prepared by Mr. Hicks, and having undertaken my site visit, I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to 2 standard conditions. Those being that the additions be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawing, reference number 2, and dated 21/01/05, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there were 5 letters of support submitted in support of this application.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Good night, Mr. Hicks.
Well, you'll see me again. So.
Oh, yeah, I just saw that.
Thank you. So.
Okay. Application CAV 009 of 2021 at 482 Trillium Drive. Again, the application number is CAV 009 of 2021, 482 Trillium Drive. If you are interested in speaking to this application and you are watching the live stream at oakville.ca, please call 905-815-6095 to be promoted into the video conference. Staff is standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. Members who are in attendance who would like to speak to this application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will elevate you to speak when it is your turn to do so. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kolbasenko.
Good evening. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for having us here this evening. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I see that the screen is...
It's all yours.
Yeah, something is wrong with the image, so...
Okay, just you can speak to town staff and they will follow your requests accordingly.
Okay, the slide looks to be somewhat distorted, but that's fine. We had an image of an elevation on the front cover, but that's okay.
Is there a way to bring down the size of the slide so that it all fits in the screen? The town staff looks to be working on it.
Okay, I'll start my presentation anyway. So we are seeking 2 minor, modest variances for a 2-story dwelling in Oakville on 42 Trillium. The first one is to request a larger garage size to permit a tandem garage, so it's interior parking space. And the second one is a modest increase in residential floor area from 41% as per bylaw to 44.25%. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. I will say that part of the additional residential floor area has to do with, similarly to Mr. Hicks' presentation, the space above the garage within the roof space. In working through the zoning staff comments, we were actually, in order to comply with the height of the garage, we were encouraged to increase that slightly from the original submission. Without changing the outside look of the building. It's just basically working within the truss space of the area above the garage. We did follow the design guidelines for stable residential communities, keeping very much in mind massing, avoiding large volumes, trying to bring down the roof lines, stepping second floor walls away from lower floors. We did circulate the initial proposal to planning staff, to Brandon Hassan, and received some comments. We further revised the design to address those comments, and we understand that the variances submitted are supported. There's no objections, and the end result is a house which doesn't really reflect the square footage, we believe, of the actual proposal. If you want to skip to the next slide, please. This is the existing property in its current shape in the summer months when the photo was taken. Obviously, it needs a lot of TLC. Next slide, please. Oops, so something got distorted with the slides. This is the side plan drawing. You probably have a hard copy of it or a copy of the digital submission that was sent in with the drawings. So a couple of things to just highlight: that we're not seeking any setbacks, relief from setbacks. We're not seeking lot coverage. In fact, our setbacks are smaller than the permitted 1.2 on either side. So basically, we're staying within the envelope of the zoning from a site perspective. Next slide, please. Again, something is wrong with the slides, but this is just the first floor plan. Nothing really notable to highlight other than it's a pretty conventional Oakville design, I would say, with a tandem garage. Next slide, please. On the second floor, again, not really visible because of how distorted the image has become, but we do make an attempt to step back from the sides, both side yards on the second floor. We set the building back, and then the front of the house is really handled through a series of dormers which protrude into the roof, trying to mitigate that massing on the front of the house. Next slide, please. I apologize for the slides. I'm not sure what happened there. They were fine in the presentation that we sent in. So this is the front elevation. You can see the massing of the roof. It's brought down from the top all the way down to the level of the front porch. And we have 3 equal dormers and 1 distinct dormer over the front entrance, which is a little bit interrupts the mass of the overall roof. The attempt here is, again, to really bring down that massing of the house and make it appear much smaller than it actually is on the street. Next slide, please. The side elevations just show the wraparound of the roof around the house. Nothing extraordinary here. Next slide, please. Here's a better slide. Here's a little 3D view of the proposal, which was not submitted at the time of the drawings. This is mainly for your benefit here for the presentation, just to really illustrate our attempts to deal with the massing in the front of the house and trying to disguise the overall square footage which is behind front elevation. Next slide. There is 2 precedents on the street for previous approvals for slightly higher residential floor area. The first one was our project, which is directly adjacent to this property, 486. That was approved back in October of 2020. There we were seeking an increase from 41% to 43.87, which our proposal is really similar to that, with the exception of that we had to count some of that roof space above the garage, so that's why our numbers are slightly higher. But other than that, it's very comparable in size. Next slide, please. And then the other one on the street from back in 2015, the approval there was given from 41% to 45%, so it's even higher than what we're seeking on our proposal. So with that, I'll close my comments. We believe both of our variances are modest in nature. We've done our best to mitigate the impacts of the massing and the additional square footage. And as far as we're aware, there's no objections. We have staff support. So thank you very much.
Are there any questions of Mr. Kovasenko at this time? Okay, very well. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, do we have any members that of public that would like to address this application or have raised their hands?
No, Madam Chair, I don't see anybody.
Okay, very well, thank you. We're ready to take the matter into committee, but I have to make a comment about something within your presentation that's kind of eating at me a little bit. I've been on this committee for quite some time now. I'm not sure if I was there on the 2015. Yeah, it's 2021, so I was definitely there on the 2015 application. It's very subjective when you put down previous decisions that just show numbers and they don't really show the actual application or what we looked at, because we really do try and take each application and its own merits, and it's subject to a lot of planning, preparation, and documents that support it. And it's I think it's misguided to use just numbers to say, well, you know, in 2015 we got this, and in 2020 we got that, and we're asking for a lot less right now. It might be the same number, but the impact is much more graver where the situation is concerned. So I'd just like to caution you in the future, when you do use that kind of material to support your presentation, specifically or especially for the public, because it doesn't really help us do our job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, point taken. Thank you very much for making the point. And it was there just to show precedent on the street. The first committee precedent that I showed, which is a lot adjacent to us, was our design, and we actually had some very positive feedback back in October on that design. So I feel confident in the first one I presented. I don't have a lot of background on the second one, so thank you for making that point. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments to Mr. Kovasenko before we take the matter into committee? Okay, I see none. Who is ready to move a motion? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Murray. Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff's written staff report, which I note that the staff were in support of, and thank you again for working with the staff to accommodate the changes requested and the bylaws. So I would like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings, issue number 13 dated January 13/21, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you very much, committee members.
Okay, good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, I'll give you a moment to promote the panelists for application CAV 010 of 2021 at 3333 and 3337 Douglas Avenue. If you are watching on the live stream page at oakville.ca, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will be standing by to take your call and promote you to the video conference.
Madam Chair, Alison Strickland, she's promoted to panelist.
Very well. Anyone who is in attendance tonight who would like to speak to this application, CEV 010 of 2021 at 3333-3337 Douglas Avenue, we invite you to raise your hand and you'll be given instructions by the Secretary Treasurer accordingly. Good evening, Ms. Strickland.
Good evening, committee. Thank you for hearing this presentation. In case the committee is curious about the numbering, this used to be a double lot and it's been separated now. And so the number 333 has been assigned to the now vacant lot at number 172, lot number 172, which you can see on the survey in front of you. So my client has been involved with these two pieces of property for a few years now, while the property at 337 was addressed. It was Heritage House, it was lifted, moved to the north, placed down, refurbished, and has since been sold, and there's therefore a new owner on that property, which leaves number 333, where my clients plan to live themselves. The committee will note that we have worked extremely hard with the town staff to address some of their concerns regarding the appearance, specifically of the side, in order to address some of their comments about it having been boxy at the beginning. And so what we're asking for is coverage. We comply with every other of the zoning requirements. Our setbacks are good, our height is good, the RFA is good, and in fact our front yard setback is much further back than it's required to be in order to position the house somewhat more in line with its neighbors. Having had full staff support at this point, as well as 10 neighbors support, including those directly on either side of the house, front and back. My client has gone to a great extent to accommodate anybody who had anything to offer, and to our knowledge, nobody has had anything to offer to the design. And so this is the design that we present before the committee this evening, and we're seeking relief for coverage.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Strickland. Are there any questions of Ms. Strickland at this time? Ms. Murray?
Through you, Madam Chair, not so much as a question, but a comment. I would just like to say that I appreciated the streetscape rendering. I found it very helpful, so thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, it does put it in context.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, I see none. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, has there anyone called in or put their hands up from the panelists?
No, Madam Chair, I don't see anybody.
Okay. All right, then Ms. Strickland, if you're familiar with the conditions that town staff have recommended, we're ready to take the matter into committee. Perfect. All right, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town staff report that I do note is in favor of the application. Also noting that there were 10 letters in support of the application and no letters in opposition. Taking into the account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there were no oral objections from the public, I am prepared to make a motion in support of the application as applied for, finding that it meets all the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and that it's subject to the following 2 conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated January 8th, 2021, and elevation drawings dated January 7th, 2021. And our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Okay. Okay, we have the last item on our agenda is CAV 092 of 2020, and
Well, Madam Chair.
hello. Hi, Mr. Hicks.
Mr. Hicks again. So
we are at 2343 Khalsa Gate. I'll let you do your presentation while we wait for the attendees to request to speak. If there's anyone watching the live stream at oakville.ca, we ask you to call 905-815-6095. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
thank you, Madam Chair. I believe there is a presentation board, so we're here tonight to seek 2 variances for, this is a new piece of construction. It's a new condominium building being built. There's 2 variances, one for a swimming pool, which is on the roof of the building, and the other is for the height of the terrace around that swimming pool. It's probably best to show you, if you can go to the next page. This is an aerial view from the top showing where the pool is located. And when I show you the next rendering in a minute, there's a 4-story component of the building, and then there's an 8-story component of the building. And this sits on top of the 4-story portion. If we can go to the next slide. It's a large development that's been underway. It's 99% of the way through site plan approval. It had some zoning amendments that were done before. Unfortunately, those zoning amendments did not pick up the fact that there was a pool/hot tub on the roof, but we weren't aware of that provision in the bylaw back at that point in time. But basically, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor on those, but the 4-story portion of the building to the right of that image is where the roof terrace is located. And if I can go back just for a second to the previous slide, I just want to point out a couple of things. It's hard to see here, but we've surrounded the pool terrace itself is about 2 feet above the finished area of the roof. And that's why we have to ask for the height variance related to the roof terrace, because it's taken to the terrace around the pool itself. We also have a 5-foot glass screen that's around there. And I know one of the residents is concerned about noise, and we had a couple of things. Number one, that by putting that 5-foot glass screen around there, it creates quite a different type of buffer for sound. It also gives us wind protection at the roof line. But we are permitted a roof terrace, and as you can see, the rest of the building has a large gathering area which falls off of a fitness area that's up on that roof plan. We're trying to develop the building so that it's compatible with some of the requirements for COVID and people remaining in these buildings. And the resident that I know is concerned, I think, is on Barronwood Drive, which we haven't shown all those houses in the back, but it is at the back. But there's most likely, I'm going to guess, 170-foot distance between the pool and their back lot line. So if we can go to 2 slides further on, I believe. That just shows the site plan itself. So the development itself is consisting of an 8-story building through here. And there's an 8-story building here with a 4-story portion here. That 4-story portion was related to an old zoning line that crossed this property that permitted a lower density on just that portion of the site. And I know there is a note that I've seen that was here for the deferral before, which I think is on Barronwood Drive in around this location, I believe. I'll let them speak to their concerns, but we're as far away as we can get from that property line. We are actually permitted to have an outdoor pool at ground level right adjacent to the property line, which would actually, in my opinion, have much more impact. This is about 50 feet, 55 feet above the grade, and it is surrounded by a noise barrier as well. So the variance is, and as I say, the second variance is simply that the bylaw is written stating that you can't have a swimming pool, I think, above 1.5 meters above grade. So which I've never heard of before, but that's why we're here. So.
Great.
And I know planning is in support of it. They didn't seem to have any concern. And as I say, we've gone through a lengthy 3-year process taking this to the final approvals, and we're looking forward to applying for building permit as soon as this is finished. So.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. I'm looking at Ms. Doris Levington's letter of objection. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, has anyone signed in to speak to this matter?
Madam Chair,
or raise their hand?
I saw before in attendees, but she's not anymore, so I don't have anybody.
Okay, very well. So we will note the letter of objection that was submitted. Do we have any questions of Mr. Hicks at this time? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Through you, Madam Chair, a question for Mr. Hicks, just to clarify. Are there balconies backing on to 2372 Barronwood? I couldn't.
In the 8-story building, there are balconies that face both sides of the building that surround all of them. So that's about, that building cuts a little bit short of where the individual's house starts, but there are balconies around all 4 sides of each of the 2 buildings, definitely. So
I'm just trying to determine, Madam Chair, the level of noise that could easily come from those balconies, notwithstanding the pool. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, one would expect that in apartments with balconies that there will be some noise, for sure. Thank you for that question. Are there any questions of Mr. Hicks at this time?
Madam Chair.
Okay, I see none. If the panelist has not come back, and I think we've given enough time
Madam
for
Chair,
them to call.
Sorry,
yes.
Can you again, would you please again repeat the telephone numbers so if anybody wants to call?
Okay, if you are interested in speaking to application CAV 092 of 2020 at 2343 Khalsa Gate, the number to call is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. We'll give them a few minutes. Perhaps they got disconnected or they're having trouble with the internet.
Madam Chair, Judy Murray, she wants
Oh,
to speak.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at my computer. Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair, I have a question, please, for town staff. And the question doesn't, the requested conditions don't indicate or speak specifically to the 5th floor rooftop terrace. It just says that the building be built in general accordance with the final site plan. Is there a reason for lack of specificity?
Through you, Madam Chair, not necessarily. I wouldn't mind including that wording. It's just that any changes to the plans that are approved or decided upon tonight would form part of the supplementary drawings that would need to be submitted for the site plan. So it'd all be part and parcel of the final approved package for the site plan.
Thank you.
Ms. Secretary Treasurer, if no one has called in by now.
No, Madam Chair, I don't have any phone calls.
Okay, then we're ready to take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I don't believe Mr. Hicks was meant to get caught in the bylaw provision that he's been caught in, but be it as that may, it's in the bylaw. I don't see any impacts from these variances. I'm satisfied that in relation to the objection that the swimming pool is as far from the adjacent properties as can be. The applicant has taken care to try to mitigate any noise with the barrier, and that the bylaw would permit the pool to be even closer without the need for variance. I'd make that approval subject to 2 variances that be constructed in general accordance with the final approved site plan with the satisfaction of the director, and that the variance expires if a building permit's not issued within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Tulowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hicks. Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night. Okay. The next item on our agenda is a confidential item under Section 239 of the Municipal Act and Section 6.2b of the Town's Procedural Bylaw. The committee will resolve to a closed meeting session for the purpose of dealing with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So I will need a motion to discuss this item in closed session. Motion, go ahead, Ms. Murray.
I'd like to move a motion to move into closed session, subject to the provisions that you cited, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. All those in support of proceeding with a closed session? Okay, very well. It is resolved that we are going into closed meeting right now. Ms. Secretary Treasurer, when you have done what needs to be done in terms of making sure everyone has exited the meeting, and you can give us a green light to start our discussion.
Madam Chair, would you wait for a couple seconds? I will let you know.
Yes, absolutely. Staff direction was provided in closed session. So we are now in the part of confirming our minutes for the December, is it December or January 19th? I have a typo in my sheet.
January 19th.
Okay. So who would like to move a motion to confirm the minutes for January 19th, 2021? Thank you, Ms. Murray. And then I have to also move a motion
No, I don't have to move a motion. That's it, right?
You need
We've-
somebody to
we've-
adjourn. We
Sorry?
need somebody to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, okay. I got confused by the notes on the other one. All right, so motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle moves to adjourn the meeting.